I needed a cheap place to stay in Chicago for a 3-day conference. Hotels downtown were outrageous, so I found a cozy studio apartment on Airbnb in the Wicker Park area. It had great reviews, mostly commenting on how stylish the interior was. When I arrived, it looked exactly like the photos. Modern furniture, exposed brick walls, and a massive floor-to-ceiling mirror right next to the bed. The host, a guy named Elias, who I never met in person, messaged me the door code. The first night was fine, though I felt a bit exposed. The apartment was on the ground floor, and even with the blinds drawn, I felt like the city was too close. But the weirdest part was that mirror. It was huge. It faced the bed directly. No matter where you stood in the room, you saw yourself. On the second night, I came back from dinner around 11 p.m.
I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom when I remembered a TikTok video I'd seen about checking mirrors in hotels. It was just a silly superstition, I thought, but curiosity got the better of me. I walked out to the main room, stood in front of the giant mirror, and placed my fingernail against the glass. If there's a gap between your finger and the reflection, it's a real mirror. If there's no gap, if your finger touches its reflection directly, it's a two-way mirror. My finger touched the reflection. No gap. A cold chill went down my spine. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a cheap manufacturing type of glass. I turned off the lights in the room and pressed my face against the glass, cupping my hands around my eyes to block out any reflection. I saw a faint light on the other side. It wasn't a wall behind the mirror. It was a room. I didn't scream. I grabbed my phone and my purse, and I quietly walked out of the apartment. I went straight to the nearest police station. When the officers arrived at the apartment, they found a hidden latch behind a decorative painting in the hallway outside the unit. It opened into a narrow utility closet that ran the length of the apartment wall. Inside that closet, directly behind the mirror, was a chair, a laptop, and a sleeping bag. The laptop was open, recording a live feed from the bedroom. The police found hours of footage of me sleeping, changing clothes, and working on my laptop. But the scariest part wasn't the footage. It was the half-eaten sandwich sitting on the chair. The bread was still soft. Whoever was back there had been watching me just minutes before I did the fingernail test, and they had slipped out the back way while I was staring right at them. My wife and I rented a cabin in the Great Smoky Mountains for our anniversary. The listing promised complete seclusion and a rustic experience. The cabin was beautiful, filled with old books and antique furniture. The owner, a woman named Martha, said she lived in the next town over and to make ourselves at home. The first odd thing happened on our second day. We went hiking for 4 hours. When we came back, the cabin felt different. The air was warmer, like the heat had been cranked up, and I could smell faint cigarette smoke. Neither of us smokes. We checked the windows, but they were all locked. We assumed maybe the smell was coming from the old fireplace. That night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to use the bathroom. As I walked down the hallway, I felt a cold draft coming from the built-in bookshelf at the end of the hall. It was strange, because there were no windows nearby. I ran my hand along the books and felt a distinct breeze pushing through the gaps between the novels. I pulled on one of the shelves. It didn't budge. I pushed on the side paneling. Nothing. Then, I noticed the floor. There were scratch marks on the hardwood, curving out from the base of the bookshelf. I gripped the side of the shelf and pulled hard. With a heavy clunk, the entire bookcase swung outward on hidden hinges. Behind it wasn't a crawl space. It was a fully furnished room.
My heart hammered in my chest as I stepped inside. There was a small cot, a mini fridge, and a bank of monitors. The monitors were displaying black and white feeds. One was the living room, one was the kitchen, and one was our bedroom, where my wife was currently sleeping. But what made me vomit in my mouth was the wall next to the monitors. It was covered in Polaroids, dozens of them.
Pictures of guests sleeping, pictures of guests in the shower, and right in the center, a fresh Polaroid, still developing, of me and my wife eating dinner at the kitchen table that evening. The angle of the photo was from the ceiling. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. I spun around. Standing in the doorway of the secret room, holding a heavy flashlight, was an elderly woman. It wasn't Martha. It was someone I'd never seen before, wearing dirty rags. "You weren't supposed to find this until after you checked out," she rasped. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I shoved past her, knocking her into the monitors, and ran to the bedroom to grab my wife. We locked ourselves in the car and drove down the mountain in the dark. The police later found out that Martha didn't exist. The cabin had been squatted in by a homeless woman for years, and she made money by listing it on Airbnb and stealing the identities and private moments of her guests. I moved to Austin, Texas for a 3-month contract job and rented a private basement suite in a large suburban house. The listing said the owners, a nice couple, lived upstairs, but the basement had a private entrance and was completely soundproofed. For the first month, it was perfect. I never saw the owners, just heard their occasional footsteps upstairs. But then, I started losing things, small things. My hairbrush wasn't where I left it. A box of cereal went missing. One morning, I found the toilet seat up. I live alone, and I'm a woman. I always put the seat down. I messaged the owners asking if they had entered for maintenance. They replied immediately, "No, we respect your privacy. We haven't been down there." One Saturday, I decided to deep clean the closet. It was a walk-in closet with cedar paneling. As I was organizing my shoes on the back rack, I noticed the back wall panel felt loose. It wobbled when I bumped it. Curiosity struck, so I shined my phone flashlight into the gap. There was no insulation behind the wood, just dark, empty space. I grabbed a screwdriver from my toolkit and pried the panel off. It popped off easily, revealing a dark, narrow corridor that ran parallel to my apartment. It was a service tunnel, probably for pipes, but someone had laid down carpet scraps to walk quietly. I crawled in. The tunnel wrapped around the perimeter of my entire unit. Every few feet, there was a small hole drilled into the drywall. I put my eye to the first hole. I was looking directly into my own shower. I moved to the next hole, a view of my living room couch. I moved to the last hole. It looked straight down onto my pillow in the bedroom. At the end of the tunnel, there was a sleeping bag and a pile of clothes. My clothes. The shirt I thought I lost at the laundromat, my missing hairbrush, and a notebook. I opened the notebook. It was a log. Day 12. She wakes up at 7 a.m. She smells like vanilla. Day 20. She cried on the phone with her mom today. I wanted to hug her. Day 32. I tried to touch her hair while she was sleeping, but she moved. Next time. I froze. Day 32 was last night. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock of my private entrance door, the main door to my apartment. "Honey, I'm home," a male voice called out. It was the owner. But he wasn't coming from upstairs. He was coming into my apartment. And he wasn't alone. I could hear him talking to himself. I was trapped in the walls, clutching the notebook, listening to him hum a tune as he walked toward the closet where I had left the panel open. I scrambled backward, deeper into the dark tunnel, praying there was another way out. I found a small vent leading to the backyard and kicked the grate out just as I heard him scream my name from inside the closet.